Morena e te whānau, ko Mark Prain tauko ingoa, and as you just heard, I have the enormous privilege to be the founder of this organisation. And I'm now retired, and I'm engaged in being curious, and they call me the kaitiaki, which is probably a good definition of my capabilities now. But my job here today is very simple. 20 years ago, I rather tremulously knocked on a door here in Tamaki, and I was met by Sir Edmund Hillary, who I'd never met before. He was in his early 80s, Peter, 83 or 4. And he said, "Oh, come on in, and it's great to meet you. I've Googled you." And I thought, oh, well, this hasn't begun well. And before I could say anything more, he said, "Where are we going to do this?" And I was completely flummoxed. Implication being that the one-pager I'd sent him on this enormously cheeky idea of a global institute to celebrate leadership driven by purpose, he had not only read, but he had decided was a great thing. And then he said, "Who are your people? Who have you got with you?" So to cut a long story short, I agreed that before we went public in any way, I'd gather people, and we would, when ready, launch this institute, which, as Rosalie's just said, he decided should be done on his final, as it turned out, return to the ice on the 22nd of January, being the day 2007, which was my 50th birthday. And I remember protesting rather weakly to him and said, "Ed, that's my birthday. I'll be on the phone all day." And he just looked at me in the way that only Sir Edmund can. And that was dismissed, and he went on and did exactly that. Sadly, as you know, it was only 1 year later that we were here in Parnell, in fact, celebrating the tangi of the great man. I won't bore you with any more of the story other than to say that, as Rosalie has indicated, there are now 11 laureates, ranging from Kiribati with my old friend President Tong, to the west coast of the States, Amy Christensen, who you'll hear from today, and all the way to Uganda. Our latest laureate is a rather remarkable young woman called Vanessa Nkate, based in Uganda. It has been an extraordinary journey with these people, and unlike the equally remarkable journey which came next, which was many of you as fellows, the difference here is fundamentally that if you're a laureate initially for a year, and the expectation of you is that we will work alongside you and encourage you to do more of what you are already doing. So it's not, you are now a Hillary laureate and you need to do this, and that. It's been an extraordinary journey, one that has culminated in my retirement in the writing of a book, which was a joy and is out there, Sonia tells me, for those of you interested. But I shall close with my honour to welcome to the stage the incredible Peter Hillary, Sir Edmund's son, in his own right, a revered mountaineer, latterly also a philanthropist and a businessman, and sitting alongside him the next generation, the stunningly familiar Alex. For those of you who've seen photographs of Ed as a young man, prepare to see him again. Please, thank you to the Hillary family for the extraordinary support from day one right through to the present day. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. The Hillary Institute and the way it's worked has been of huge interest to the family for a very long time, and it really is thanks to Mark's leadership and energy that it's got to this stage, both with the laureates and the fellows, and we're very keen to see this progress. Great achievements show us that we can do more than we thought. And I think that's the important thing about any great achievement. Now, while my father, Ed Hillary, and Tenzing Norgay wanted to climb Mount Everest because no one had reached the summit, their success on this daring climb into the physical, physiological, and psychological unknown expanded the realm of possibility for every one of us down near sea level. The fact that we too could climb the highest mountain if we wanted to. Effectively, that we could do more than we thought before. The truth is, we are all liberated by the successes of others because their successes show that it can be done. And that's very much what the laureates and the fellowship is all about as well. I often get asked about, my father's been gone for 15 years now. What was Ed Hillary like? And I think it's best to describe people perhaps by anecdote. Many years ago, when I was a 19-year-old mountaineer and student, he had organized an expedition to make the first ascent of the great Kaipo Wall in Fiordland in the southwest of New Zealand. The Kaipo Wall was at the head of the Great Kaipo Valley, just to the north of Milford Sound. It was an unclimbed 1,200-meter, 4,000-foot granite wall, and the plan was to make that first ascent. We spent a week trekking down to Lake McKerrow, coming round the coastline of Fiordland, and we traipsed our way up this long, twisting valley with the walls getting higher and higher the further up the valley we went. And there it was, 1,200 meters, 4,000 feet of sheer rock. We broke up into two teams, and the expert team, Mike Gill and others, were going to take a line straight up the middle, and my father and myself and a few others were going to take up a line off to the left side of the face. And the idea is that at the end of the day we'd meet at the top, which we did. We got up the wall. That was a fantastic experience. But it's Fiordland, ladies and gentlemen. Fiordland has prodigious amounts of rain and weather. So at the end of that day, the weather did change. A westerly started coming up. It started to blow at 100 knots. Rain was pelting down. It was sort of coming through the layers of snow above our snow cave where most of us were, and some of us in a little tent outside. We all ended up getting completely soaked. Our sleeping bags were sodden, and as the days went by, we started to run out of food. To say that the morale was going down would not be an exaggeration. And we were feeling incredibly miserable and frankly wondering when and if we would ever get out of here. And it is into this atmosphere that my father uttered, I guess, the quote of the expedition. He looked at us all and said, "You know, fellows, some people wouldn't think this is much fun." And it was a real lesson in keeping it all in perspective, laughing at adversity and generally knowing that it won't last forever. You will get out of here. You can tolerate this situation. I think what was most remarkable about my father, Edmund Hillary, was his commitment to the people of the high altitude villages of the Mount Everest region of the Himalayas. All that work was a collaboration between the people of the high altitude villages and my father and his Himalayan Trust team. He saw education as the priority and education for women as both empowerment and the building of a better society. He realized that our environment needed stewardship so that we both could look after the ecosystems and ourselves. And I know he would be honored and thrilled at the Hillary Laureates and Fellowship that has come out of the Hillary Institute of International Leadership since 2007. Passionate people, skilled in innovative approaches and resolve to tackle the issues of our time: climate, poverty, peace, and justice. Now, for an insight into how this direction started for my father, Sir Edmund Hillary, and what we are doing now in the Himalayas, here is my son, Alexander Hillary, the General Manager of the Himalayan Trust, to tell you about our continued commitment to the people living on the roof of the world and our 70-year bond with Mount Everest, Chomolungma Sagarmatha. And I might say, the only member of the Hillary family to climb that sharp, pointy peak over there, Mount Ahmed Ablam. Dad led the expedition that made the first ascent, but he never got up himself. I attempted a rather audacious western route, but got to 6,300 meters and didn't get to the top. So it was the third generation that finally tagged the summit. Thank you.
Thanks, Dad. I should point out the route that I took was up the ridgeline, the sensible route, and Dad decided to go straight up the middle of the face. So a little different, but anyway, tēnā koutou katoa and namaste. Thank you, Rosalie, and your team for all the amazing work that you've done in putting on this summit. When my grandfather climbed Mount Everest back in 1953, he left an indelible mark on the history of exploration and adventure around the world. But this legacy was not to be the one that really became his life's work. After Everest, Ed returned to the Himalayas, and he was asked on the request of the local Sherpa people to build a school. And he built them that school. It was a simple building high in the Himalayas at the foot of Mount Everest, but it was to be the beginning of a lifelong commitment to the region and to the people of that region. And at the time, the Himalayan region was one of the poorest areas of Nepal, one of the poorest countries in the world. And so over the next 3 decades, Ed built 42 schools, hospitals, forestry nurseries, and airstrips around the entire region. And it was all to contribute towards the development of this place. Now, this work continues to this day with my father and I running the trust and our programs. We continue to work in the schools that Ed built all those years ago, but now we work with over 100 different schools throughout the region. And in these schools, much has changed since Ed's day. From back in those days, working with chalk and slate in those schools, today they study on computer labs. So there's been an enormous change over the decades. Now, the Himalayan Trust was built by my grandfather with, I would say, 3 defining values that I think really stand us apart and guide us today. And the most critical of these is power in partnership. Ed established the Trust in the 1960s to operate in a collaborative and inclusive way where the community was involved in every step of work and decision-making. He understood that true progress happens when people work together. Now, secondly, and importantly, because we are talking about Ed Hillary here, adventure by nature. Our commitment to adventure means that we're always ready to explore new ideas, as you are here today, navigate the complex terrain of development work for the Himalayan Trust, and adapt to the changing needs of the peoples that we work with. Now, I would say, in a mountaineering sense, no first sort of unclimbed mountain has ever climbed to the original plan. Now, lastly, Ed's approach was underpinned by a long-term commitment to change. For 60 years, the Himalayan Trust has operated in the Himalayas and has been committed to supporting the people of Solu Khumbu in the Himalaya region. And I think it was this long-term commitment that Ed insisted upon that sort of resulted in his pretty remarkable contribution to breaking the cycle of poverty in Nepal. And these approaches of Ed's really led to his success, and I see these as relevant to what's happening here at the Hillary Innovation Summit, tackling the challenges, but also opportunities that New Zealand has faced and the world. So thank you for all being here, for your commitment to these ideals, and to your dedication to creating a better world. I hope you have a wonderful 2 days. Thank you.